Live.
Cool.
Okay. Well, it's 1 o'clock on the dot. So shall we?
Do it.
All right.
Ready, guys?
Okay, I'll kick it off with some behind the scenes. Chapman alumni, if you are on, which I hope you guys all are, thanks for believing in our mission. Tara and I did this truly as a passion project. And as of last week, we had over 170 RSVPs, which is really exciting, and we're really grateful for that. In full transparency, we thought we were going to have 20 people sign up, so the fact that it's 170 is really cool. It just shows how hungry we all are to connect with other Panthers and kind of reignite this concept of Think Chapman First.
And I definitely want to give a huge shout out to Chris Nominson at Camel Financial. You see the beautiful camel logo below. Without him, this really wouldn't be possible. Like we mentioned, this was grassroots, so we didn't even have a Zoom webinar. So Chris stepped up. He's amazing. He actually is with Camel Financial, and they're an alternative funding source for B2B businesses. So they actually provide traditional lines of credit for companies like startups and anything like that. So he's an amazing resource, amazing to work with, and an even better human being. And the founder of the company, Helena Sopwith, actually is another Chapman alumni. So we're always thinking Chapman first. So if any of you need to get connected with Chris, shoot me an email and I'm happy to make that intro.
So you guys asked for industry leaders, and here they are. We're going to, at the end of this, send out contact information so that if you want to follow up with some questions, if you want to say thank you for your time, all the networking things, you'll have that information. So let's get into it. All right, Tara, you want to kick off with some intros?
Okay, guys. So what I want from you is name, company, your title, and your Chapman connection. So Derek, let's start with you.
All right. My name is Derek Helwig. I am the VP of Development for Xpedition Media. Chapman Connection, I graduated in 2005 and I came back in 2018 to start teaching. I teach one class a week on documentary filmmaking.
Awesome. What about you, Ash?
Ashkan Payami. I'm a senior manager for global sales and distribution at Lionsgate movie studio, and I graduated in 2017 with my MBA from Chapman.
Thanks. Mike?
Mike Brown, founding executive, chief marketing officer at Amare Global, the mental wellness company. We're based in Irvine. I graduated from Chapman in 2006 with an undergraduate business degree with emphasis in entrepreneurship and marketing. Since then, I've really enjoyed being involved with the Launch Labs Entrepreneurship Center as a mentor, and also a past chairman of Chapman 50.
And Madison.
Hey guys, I'm Madison Fiore, head of growth of Hawke Media, which is an outsourced CMO and marketing agency based in Santa Monica. I am a Chapman graduate, class of 2012 and a half. I did the old victory lap or a half victory lap. So I don't know whether to identify as a 2012 grad, 2013 grad. I think on the paperwork it says 13, but I think of myself as more of a 2012 guy.
Good.
All right, well then let's get going with the first question. Mike, I'm going to push this one out to you. How did you utilize your own network to get to where you are today?
Yeah, I think, the first thing with networking is you want to come in it from a positioning of being a giver, not a taker. So I think sometimes people approach networking as what are they going to get out of it, but that usually doesn't come across too well. So always come at networking from giving and adding value. Say yes, show up, follow up, build your relationships. Those are the fundamentals of leveraging it. You never really know where your next big opportunity is going to come from. I didn't know that in my career, I'd started my company when I was 19 as an undergrad at Chapman, ran it for 12 years. I didn't know that a relationship that I had met, 5 years prior through networking, when my mentor introduced me to Hip Tran, our founder and CEO, that was going to turn into me joining Hip as a business partner, exiting my first company and joining HIP to build the mental wellness company. And so you never know, a lunch meeting you do 5 years, you do today, 5 years could turn into your next opportunity. So just show up and add value.
Ash, anything from you?
Yeah, that's everything Mike said for sure is what you all should be focusing on. For me, what worked a lot was I actually was getting my MBA because I wanted to do a career change and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And as I've gone through my career path and networked with a lot of people, I've heard a lot of similar stories of, oh, I don't know what to do. And so I'm getting my master's, or I'm pursuing higher education. And what worked really well for me was I attended every single networking event I could get my hands on. I went to Dodge Film School. I went to the undergraduate marketing business events. And I didn't care if it was something that was an uninteresting topic, or like financing or accounting is not what I wanted to do. But I still went to all of those networking events because you don't know who you're going to meet at those events. You could meet the next, the CFO for a movie studio and end up connecting with them, and they might put you in touch with somebody that you end up, hitting it off with and pursuing, something down the line. So I would say that, be fearless when you're in the room. It's hard to not kind of, be around the edges of the room. And as Mike said, when you're talking to people, try your best to contribute to a conversation in a positive way, not just take, but also be willing to contribute as much as you can.
True. Okay, well, since you're doing such a great job, I have a question then for you, Ash. What is something that surprised you then about the entertainment, marketing, media industry?
That's a good question. So kind of similar to what I mentioned about the career path change, when I was interning at Lionsgate, when I was getting my master's, I noticed that there were a lot of people that were working at Lionsgate that they didn't come from a traditional, movie studio type of job, and they transitioned from other roles in other industries and other companies. And that made me a lot more confident as I was going down my career path and when I was applying for jobs, knowing that, hey, you don't have to work at an agency or work for a movie studio your whole career to break in. It is very hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say that anybody who can apply can get a job, but a lot of it goes back to that networking thing of how well connected are you? How much time have you put in following up with people that you've met at your networking events? And for me, it was a very big eye-opening moment, kind of seeing that how my very unconventional career path and the skills that I picked up along the way, working in retail management, operations, finance, all kind of played into getting an opportunity with what I consider to be my dream company. And there's a lot of people like that out there. And there's a lot of people like that work at these studios. So if you don't necessarily feel like you fit in the company that you're with, but you have a lot of skills that you've developed over the years, that's okay. Use those skills to try and leverage a position with a company that really is a better fit.
I see you nodding a lot, Derek. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really, really great point. I think for me, just reflecting on that question, one of the biggest shocks for me, and this is going to sound terrible, so I apologize ahead of time, but one of the biggest shocks for me was when I actually got into the industry to realize, in a way, how human people are. Like you're constantly reading the trades, and as you're trying to break in, and oh my gosh, I revere this person, and it's almost like when I actually got into it, it was like, that person's kind of dumb. And like, it actually was a little bit of a humbling thing. Whereas like, I thought this person was the smartest person ever, but I hear some of the ideas that somebody comes up with, or that many other people would come up with. And it's like, wow, I can make it. If that idea can somehow make it out there, I can make that. A great example was one of my earlier jobs. Someone pitched an idea for this competition show that we were doing. It was a non-elimination, and they're like, well, we have to do something bad for the family that loses. It was a family's driving across the United States. And so someone was like, oh, let's spray them with a fire hose. And I was like, do you not realize we're in the South and we have one African-American family on here? And like, that would be a really bad idea. And so just realizing that, wow, people really, they're kind of human in a way, and I can actually play on this level.
Madison, I'm going to go and ask you, what do you wish you'd learned a little bit more at school at Chapman that would have maybe prepared you for the industry?
Well, I think, when you're in school, there's always a right answer and there's a wrong answer, right? When you're taking tests or you're studying, it was like everything was really objective, right? It was either right or wrong. And I think this kind of plays into the last one too. Like one of the things that was jarring for me is understanding that there, especially in marketing, there isn't often a right answer or a wrong answer, right? Typically the one in the room that's willing to come up with ideas and give things a try actually is the one that kind of elevates themselves. So, the person that's afraid to get answers wrong or try to make the wrong decision actually ends up hurting themselves in the long run. Whereas somebody who's coming up with a lot of ideas and trying to contribute and kind of leading the brainstorm is the one that actually kind of elevates to the top. So I think that kind of goes back to the last question, and also this current question is just, I wish that I came into kind of the early stages of my career understanding that, you know, there aren't always right and wrong answers, but sometimes a talking point or an idea is just a way to brainstorm and kind of evolve a longer version of an answer or a solution.
Good. Anyone else have something they learned? Or we'll go to the next one for you, Mike. Okay, Mike's up. What type of person then do you see succeeding in the entertainment media marketing space?
Yeah, I think having been in the space for a while and just looking at like patterns of those that do great work and build great relationships and build great companies, I think, you know, high emotional intelligence is critical, and that includes empathy and really the ability and it's not just the ability, but it's the commitment and the always renewing, reviewing, and recommitting to seeing things from the perspective of others, not just from what we see inside of our own head, inside of our own teams, but we need to really understand our target audience and understand what makes them happy, what will they lean into, what aligns with their beliefs and their psychographics. And it's not so much about demographics these days, but understanding psychographics. What do people believe? And how do we communicate things that they can clearly know what we believe that they'll align with? I think it's never a bad decision for any individual watching this to invest in your own self-awareness and your own emotional intelligence. And there's wonderful programs out there to build that. That's those people that invest in themselves, in building themselves as a person, are those that are going to succeed in entertainment media marketing, but in life too.
Yep. Derek, I want to move this one over to you. What's one piece of advice you would give about breaking into the industry?
Yeah, like this, it's not, I think everyone knows this is a hard industry to break into, and you have to be creative, and creativity goes a long way, I think, trying to break in. It's either you got to be creative about it or you know somebody. And I know it's such a cliche that you got to know somebody, but it's absolutely true. You see that happen all the time. But if you don't know anybody, don't let that be a discouragement to you. You just got to be creative. When this question comes up a lot, I tell the story of how I broke in. You know, when I graduated in 2005, I'm just going to date myself here, but like I applied for like 100 different jobs within the entertainment industry, and I was faxing in resumes. I knew I wanted to work for The Amazing Race. I had just gotten back from studying abroad. I knew I wanted to combine film and travel in some way. So I knew Amazing Race was like the place I wanted to work at. So I'd fax in my resume. And like when I started working there, I realized the fax machine is literally right over the trash can. So it just went straight in the trash. I knew I wasn't getting anywhere that way. So I went on some like fan club sites to find out where the production company was. And then during lunch one day, I dressed up in a UPS, or what I thought was a UPS outfit. I had brown shorts, a brown shirt on, a button-up shirt on, a manila envelope with my resume inside of it, said attention production manager on it, and a clipboard that had kind of like fake signatures on it. Went down to the office, said, hey, I have a delivery for the production manager. And then I asked, can I get their name for our records? Just so I knew who would be able to, I could follow back with. This is before IMDb days when you can look everyone up. So I then knew the next day who to call, and sure enough, that guy got it. I had an interview within 2 days, and I was hired within a week. So yeah, it's all about being creative.
Unbelievable.
Madison, sorry to interrupt, Madison. I know you have an interesting story too about how you got you started. So tell us.
Yeah, I think I knew that I wanted to pivot into some sort of like a marketing role. I had been traveling for about 2 months, and it seemed like every happy, successful person that I ran into on that trip was some sort of a marketing consultant. And I was like, you know what, that's kind of what I want to do. I wasn't really sure how I wanted to do it. So I worked with a buddy to build out an agency website, an agency social media pages, just the things that make a company look real. And I wanted to go work at Hawke because I had known Hawke from another Chapman alumni who actually worked there on the creative agency side. And instead of just going in for the job interview kind of with no marketing background or no marketing expertise, I built this kind of look-alike agency to Hawke Media, asked some of my mom's friends to just let me freelance for them on some of these marketing gigs I was doing. And then I let that experience ride for about 4 to 6 months before I applied to Hawke, because I knew that, building an agency would be a lot better fit than somebody who had never been in marketing. Got the job. This is almost 4 years ago on the dot. And now I've been with the company 4 years. So I think when it comes down to it, just being creative about finding ways to be the person you want to be, whether that means doing it on your own or making it look like you do it. Derek has an awesome story. I'm sure everybody has some good stories on how they got in the position they are currently, but just trying to be a little bit creative and knowing that, the typical path isn't always the best one.
I know I'm going to go a little bit off our script of questions, but I'm just curious because I feel like people out there are hearing these stories and they're like, wow, that was really courageous, or I don't know if I would ever do it. I guess for all of you, then what was it about dressing up as a UPS person or making your own marketing company? What made you do it, and how did you get over the fear piece, I guess?
For me, it was desperation. And that really that really brought down my barriers. I'd been applying for a long time. At the time, I knew I had to stay down here. I was a tall ship captain down in Dana Point, working on tall ships. And I was like, well, this is fun, but I know where I want to be. And I've tried every which way. I got to try something new because what I'm doing now isn't working. And even today, I have a lot of students that say, oh, I'm going to apply online. I'm going to apply online. I tell them, you got to stand out. There's so many people applying online. And now being in a position of hiring, I get hundreds of resumes. So it's like, how do you stand out amongst all of them? You got to figure out some way. And even to this day, if someone applies online and then follows up with a call or an email or has tracked me down on LinkedIn, I can see they're doing research. I can see they're hungry and they want it. And just doing that activity shows me they are hungry. And this is something someone I should look at.
Derek's going to get a lot of LinkedIn messages.
I'm opening myself already.
I'm going to show up at his front door with a people later.
I do accept bribes,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, I didn't necessarily build the agency to get a job at Hawke. I started to build the agency with the idea that this is what I wanted to do with my life, and quickly realized that I was in over my head. And so it kind of it naturally progressed where I thought I was doing this as being an entrepreneur, quickly realized I was in over my head, but leveraged that, startup experience for 4 months to help get that job. And so it wasn't necessarily the former led to the latter, but kind of taking action in the initial stages helped get the job that I really wanted to.
And Mike, what about you? You started companies, you sold companies. That must be absolutely terrifying. So what made you conquer that fear of, okay, I need to provide my own income, let's go?
Wow. I mean, I started Mod Bargains, which is still a automotive enthusiast kind of haven, if you will, to help high performance cars perform better and look amazing too. And I did that out of passion. And for 5 years after starting that company, when I would speak back at the school, it's all about passion. It's all about passion, but it's actually more about commitment. And passion is underneath that. And because passion can kind of come and go, but commitment is there, and just saying, I'm going to stick the course. I mean, I didn't really know I was going to start that company. I co-founded it with a teammate from a video game called Counter-Strike that we were playing competitive first-person shooters. And we both loved modifying BMWs at the same time. And we wound up kind of stumbling into starting a company. No business plan. We just started kind of selling, upgrades. And before you knew it, I mean, we were doing $1 million a year in revenue while I was still a student. And it was just like, all right, well, let's commit to this. Let's roll with it. And that's what I did after I graduated. And we did that together for 12 years. And he's still doing it. He bought my half of the company. And that process of making a leap into the next thing for me, was about, I love cars. I love seeing car enthusiasts be happier. They would, come into our shop, or we would ship products all around the country, all around the world. We shipped to 176 countries by the time I left, and people were happy. But to me, I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to solve a bigger problem, and I wanted to make that leap. And for me, it was, what's the bigger thing I can step up to and to commit to? And as I thought about that, the journey of self-awareness, the journey of emotional intelligence, I knew I wanted to be in health and wellness. And then when I started to meet with HIP and we decided to become the mental wellness company and go after, our country and our planet's greatest need right now, from an all natural perspective, I got super passionate about it again. And then I realized, okay, now it's time to commit to this and make that leap, and leaned on my girlfriend, who quickly became my fiance, and then my wife in this process of selling a company and starting a new one. She was really my confidant in that, and having great people around you to be able to express your fears and choose love over fear whenever we can was really the process that I went through. And I think that's applicable to those that are thinking, what industry, what company, what cause are you passionate about? Well, can you commit to it? Because you don't want to be that person that's jumping from passion to passion. Find something to commit to, make a name for yourself, and stick with it before you keep jumping from passion to passion. That's something I feel very strongly about.
Awesome. And what about you, Ash?
I'm a firm believer that, everyone growing up at some point in their life should work 1 year in service industry or retail. If for no other reason, you gain a lot of empathy for those workers. But also for me, it's a grueling job. You work all the holidays when a lot of people are off. For me, when I was in management, I was working 70 hours a week and not really having a lot of vacation time for myself. And I really had nothing to lose. And I approached my mentality in my 2 years at Chapman of, I'm gonna, shoot my shot and take every opportunity I can to try and find what's going to get me up in the morning and keep me excited about my job, to Mike's point about passion, but also something that I want to be fully committed to. And I wasn't all in when I was working any of my other prior jobs. And I really felt like kind of backed into a corner, and that really drove me, where I was like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So I have nothing to lose, and I'm going to approach every interview, every application as though this is my one opportunity to really make my mark.
I think that enjoying it factor is really important, especially like at the very beginning of the panel, how we were talking about networking. Like, I have to go to a lot of networking events, and quite frankly, don't necessarily want to the vast majority of the time. And a lot of people, when they go to those events, they think they have to like shake every hand, get every business card, or else you didn't do it. Some of the best people I've met, I went to a networking event. I met one person. I hung out in the corner of the room with that one person for an hour and really like dug deep and really got to know them. And like now we're friends and we actually communicate, as opposed to like rapid firing through the event. And that's how I enjoy kind of building my network, as opposed to like rapid firing through an event, shaking every hand and getting business cards. So I think that enjoying it factor is really important across your entire career. And if you're not enjoying it, then maybe rethink what you're doing.
Yep.
Definitely.
So Derek, then how do you ask for it without really asking for it?
Yeah, a lot of my students ask this question and it's a big thing that drives me crazy. Being in a position of hiring now, I see this a lot where I get these random emails and they're saying, "Oh, working for you is going to be great for my career in the long run, and how it's going to help them." And it sounds very callous, but as a hiring person, I'm like, I don't really care about your career beyond me. Really, I'm hiring for this job. I don't want to think about that for the future for you. Really, it's what can you do for us, for our company. So I think that's a big part. So when you're filling out applications or cover letters and things like that, think about the future and how it affects the person who's reading it. Because really, at the end of the day, we don't really care about how it's going to help you as a stranger. If I want to help somebody, I'm going to help somebody I probably know. So how are you going to benefit the company? Why are you the best person for this job, for this company, and how you're going to help us? So I think as you're starting to reach out, I tell my students all the time, especially now, if you're still a current student, you're watching this, and you're going to graduate maybe this spring, start doing this now. Start reaching out. You have these great tools like LinkedIn where you can go and you can find who people are and where they work. You can't commit especially if you're a graduating senior right now, you're probably not going to be able to commit to a full-time job. Start asking for mentorship. Mentorship is a great way of getting people to start, building relationships and friendships, as Madison was talking about, was like just meeting people. If you come at it from that kind of point of view where it's like, I can't start working for you now, but I'm ready to learn. I'm hungry and I'm eager to learn from you. That's the best route. When you're looking for those kinds of people too, especially in the entertainment industry, at least in the production level of things, look for like the people who are just maybe 3-4 years out of college. They've, they're not the PA, but they're also not, the boss. And you got to stroke their ego a little bit. This may be the first time they've got someone reaching out to them, and butter them up, saying, I saw you worked on this. I really enjoyed this show. Here's what I like about it, yada, yada, yada. And like, oh, wow, someone actually is a fan. Get down that level with them and kind of stroke their ego a little bit, and then kind of develop that mentee relationship. And I think that's the best route of going about, because you're not begging for a job. You're just building your resume.
I feel like that's a really good segue then to asking you, Mike, what is the value of mentorship specifically to this industry, to entertainment, media, and marketing?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they look at mentorship, they think that the value is going purely towards the mentee, the person being mentored. And I'll tell you, like, from my experience of I've committed to being mentored by those that are further along the journey since the age of around 22. I was an entrepreneur, and I didn't really know exactly what to do. I had a marketing and entrepreneurship degree, but as much as that does prepare you in many ways, the structure, once you're actually in it and you're dealing with the day-to-day and the emotions of full sense of ownership, I needed to surround myself with people that could really relate to that journey. And as much as I love my friends and my family, being able to be mentored by those that had a similar walk that they were going through in their career was really important. I needed to seek outside of my immediate, circle of trust for that. So it's really priceless on both sides, because the mentee's getting the value for sure. They're learning, they're inspired, they're getting connected to their mentors' relationships, usually kind of that halo effect. That's a big value in it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, the mentor is learning a ton along the way too. So, and don't ever exclude yourself when you're on your journey. There's always somebody you can mentor as well. You don't always need to seek out to be the mentee. Think about mentoring others, because I can tell you, like, going to the E-Village when the Entrepreneurship Center was those little greenhouses across the street from the business school, and it's really grown since then into Launch Labs as it is today. I used to go for 4 hours twice a month. So I dedicated 8 hours a month to mentor startups. Wow. And I loved it. And you know what I found myself doing as the mentor? I was solidifying my own beliefs as an entrepreneur, what to do, how to succeed, and realizing I wasn't always practicing those. And for the mentor, now I needed to practice what I was preaching. And it was an accountability thing for me, that I didn't want to feel like inauthentic as a mentor if I was telling people to do something or advising them to do something and not doing it myself. So there's huge win-wins in mentor-mentee relationships.
Yeah, I felt that a lot too, Mike. Honestly, like, some of the best things I've done for myself is mentor other people, which doesn't sound like it makes a lot of sense, but every time you're giving someone else advice, you're kind of reminding yourself of that advice. Whether you're training a new employee, or you're like ramping somebody up, or you're mentoring somebody, some of those conversations I leave so invigorated. Whereas where I'm, working with a mentor, sometimes I don't feel as energized from those conversations. So it's really interesting how, becoming a mentor as opposed to trying to find a mentor can really invigorate and kind of light the fire for the passion that you originally started with.
The longer you're in your career, it's easy to get complacent. So as a mentor, you get to see like that passion that you once had when you were in your early 20s and what you can do. I have one student who infiltrated the KKK to do a documentary. I'm like, wow, okay, you're awesome. That reminds me what I got into this business.
Yeah, incredible.
And I think it also keeps you really like sharp. I love mentoring, because I always tell mentees as I'm bringing them on that I'm here to share my insights, but also to learn with you and from you. And they ask a lot. I ask them to, ask me hard questions, go bring me a project to look at. And that keeps me very sharp. And it forces me to stay up to date on a lot of things, that whether it's technology or industry news or other things, I think it's a great way to learn as well.
Good. Thanks, guys. Well, Ash, I have another question for you then. You mentioned that Lionsgate, you had a connection with someone at Chapman, right? So yes, that's an intro, foot in the door, but really, what did it take for you to get the job?
Yeah, so this is a great question. I get this question all the time, and I would say, it sounds so obvious, but obviously research the company. I had questions like, what's your favorite Lionsgate movie? And that's a question now that I ask when I'm interviewing people at the company. And it seems so obvious, but like it could be something that you just don't think of. But for me, it's that I literally, like I said, I approached those interviews with Lionsgate as though this is my lifeline. Like I don't want to go back to X career or X job. And I need to treat this as though like I'm applying to be the CEO of Lionsgate. So, it was a very long and arduous, interview process. And it taught me a lot about patience. And now that I'm working here, I see why. It takes a long time to hire somebody. There is a lot of steps that go into it. HR has to approve, the job description. And then now we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer who has to make sure that we're interviewing fairly and ethically. And then we can begin looking at resumes, and then people want to give their input on certain individuals that they might know that they want to refer to the job. So I was very eager and I was hungry and I was following up constantly after each interview. There was like 4 or 5 rounds for this job that I'm in right now. And I will tell you that going into it, having that hunger really set me aside and now I'm very close friends with the manager who hired me. And he told me, he was like, there was almost no doubt in my mind through the process that you were the person we wanted to hire, because you followed up, you were respectful when we told you we needed more time and we're still interviewing other applicants. And you came in professional and polished for each round of your interview. I had to do a presentation for my final interview where they gave me like a topic and they said, go make a presentation and you're going to pitch it to the EVP of our team. And it was a topic about some Apple keynote that happened and how the stuff that they talked about, how that would impact the business that I was applying for in the job. So I went in, I made, in my opinion, what was the best PowerPoint presentation I've ever put together. I came in, like I said, dressed like I wanted the CEO job. And one piece of advice that I got from one of my mentors at Chapman actually was handwritten thank you notes. I went to the Dollar Tree and I got a bunch of blank thank you notes. And I sat in the lobby of Lionsgate and I wrote, dear person X, I really appreciated hearing your insight on one thing that they mentioned during the interview. I look forward to hearing back from you. And I handed them to the front desk clerk and I said, make sure these get delivered today, please. And when my boss got those, he said, that's when I knew I was going to hire you 100%. Like I've never seen anyone put that kind of touch behind an interview. And it really made me, want to work with someone of that caliber.
I've been told that from a
Derek, I
mentor.
see you shaking.
No one writes handwritten notes anymore. It's like so simple to just pause for 5 minutes and do it. And look at that gesture set you apart, obviously on top of other things, but it was definitely the cherry on top.
It goes a long way. I noticed I get more of them now than I did definitely 5 years ago, but it actually does go a long way and make me rethink about that person if they weren't on my top of my list to begin with.
Wow. So I guess final question to conclude our first totally kick-ass industry leader call. What's something that I'll ask this to all of you guys. What's something that you want future generations to know? Madison, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of my peers and I, when I'm getting out of school, like initially just felt like I was kind of entitled to a great job with great pay because I graduated college, right? And immediately took the highest paying job I could get, even if it wasn't in the career path that I necessarily wanted. And a lot of my peers did that too, which led to, 2 years of maybe $5,000 or $7,000 more pay. But then when that job left, I kind of had to repivot and start over, take another entry-level job and then go up. So I think just realizing that your career is a marathon, not a sprint, and kind of working backwards from where you want to be 10, 20 years from now, as opposed to initially just taking the highest paying, most comfortable job you can get the day you graduate, is something that is really, really important to think of, because not a lot of people like really mention that to me, right? Everyone's like, well, what's the base pay? Like, what's the starting pay? Right. And everyone's kind of competing on like who can get the highest paying job the second you graduate. Whereas if I had identified where I wanted to be in 10 years before I graduated and taken maybe a little bit lower paying job, I probably would have got to where I am or higher much sooner.
Good. What about
Yeah,
you, Derek?
echoing that just made me think about my own life. I was offered at the time, it's a $50,000 job working in real estate right out of college. And I just didn't want to do it. I turned it down, and that was one of the hardest things to do. And then when I got my opportunity in my first job in the industry, I didn't even ask how much it paid. I left a job with health insurance, with pay, very cushy jobs, 5 minutes from my house, to then drive an hour and a half every day, just because I knew this is what I want to do. So I think, it is that passion that we talked about, and it's perseverance. It's really easy to burn out. Like, oh, this isn't working for me, I gotta go do something else. But it is, half of this industry, I think, is almost a war of attrition. Sometimes you see people who are in production, especially, they just duke it out every single day because they know it's a competition all the time. So perseverance is a huge thing to remember. And remember, you're not owed anything. And I think that's a big thing to look at when you're applying. You're not owed anything. It's how you can help someone else.
Definitely. What about you, Mike?
The way it is today, it's some things will persist, but a lot of things are going to change. Technology moves, beliefs change, all these different, new trends pop up, new platforms. Where are people spending their time? How are they absorbing content? That changes, and it's the curve of change has been accelerating decade by decade. I think we saw more changes from 2010 to 2020 than we saw from 2000 to 2010 than we saw from 1990 to 2000. Mm-hmm. So flexibility and really a commitment to continuing to learn, grow, and evolve, and not being stuck in any one way of doing things. From an executive point of view, our role is to look around the corner. What's coming 2 to 3 years from now while we continue to execute on what is happening today. But we don't make the assumption that what's happening today will continue to be relevant around the corner. So if you can develop that anticipatory vision, that's a highly valued skill set. And you can never, ever go wrong by investing in your own self-awareness, growth, and emotional intelligence. I said that earlier today. I'll say it again. Yeah. I'll say it a third time. You can never go wrong by investing in your own self-awareness, growth, and emotional intelligence. And I think that, attending panels like this are definitely a part of the process, both for us on the panel. Like I said earlier, I better go practice what I'm preaching right now, right? And I'm going to, because now it's top of mind, but also for all the attendees here today that have made a choice to show up, and this is an investment in yourself by choosing to show up. I think us as leaders, that we have teams that work with us, we can sense those that are learning, growing, and evolving, and we can sense those that are not. Yeah. And who's going to get the next promotion? Who's going to get the next level of responsibility? It's going to be those that are growing, because we want to continue to hand more things to them. Those are the people we want to hire as well. And those are we get this sixth sense to be able to sense who's on the growth curve and who is going to get stuck. And we don't want to be surrounded by people that are going to get stuck. Yeah. So that's one thing I can share.
And let's wrap it, Ash. What's one piece of advice?
I would say always be learning. I come from a family where my dad is he takes classes to teach himself how to code apps now that he's retired. And he's always like, I think you should take this online class. I think it'd be interesting for you. And it took me a long time to really understand that never stop learning is so important, because you never know where the industry's headed, and you never know where your team could be headed. Pre-pandemic, my team was in a positioned very well for success, but then we, working in home entertainment distribution for digital, once pandemic hit, it was we became the team at Lionsgate that was keeping the lights on. So, staying very well, knowledgeable about your industry and what keeps it moving in a forward direction is great. Learning from your peers, learning from mentors, learning from just reading. I read so many articles a day. I can't even tell you, my boss always comes up to me. He's like, hey, do you have any good articles for me to read? I just follow these writers on Twitter, and I just read, whatever sounds interesting to me. And, it keeps me honest, and it helps, position me for if something big ever happens, that at least I don't feel like I'm super far behind.
Totally. Gentlemen, this was so awesome. I am going to close it out. I'm stealing something from Brene Brown. So any of you out there who listen to her podcast, she's my girl. She does this thing called rapid fire. So I'm just going to go around, and the first word, first sentence that comes to mind for the four of you, shout it out. We're going to start with the first word that comes to mind when you think of Chapman. Mike.
Empowerment.
Derek.
Opportunity.
Madison.
Ideal.
Ash.
Culture fit.
There's a hyphen in that, right?
Yeah, but she said a sentence, right? She said one sentence.
You can say a sentence. You say whatever you want. You're the panelist. What's one word to describe your 2021 outlook? Let's go, Ash.
Hopeful.
Ooh, Derek.
Yeah, that's the word I was thinking of. Hopeful. It's definitely got to change.
Yep. Madison.
Connected.
And then Mike.
Optimistic.
Me too. Me too. And then the last one. Well, who's your dream dinner guest? Derek.
Ooh, my dream dinner guest. It's gonna be cheesy, but really, I love Barack Obama. I mean, politics aside, he just seems like a cool dude, and like, I would love to shoot basketball with him.
For sure. Madison.
I think Bill Murray.
That would be a good one.
Yeah.
I would want to go try to play golf with him, and so I would ask him at dinner if we would go play golf. I met him when I did a job a long time ago, and he was hilarious, and it was just like a very charismatic guy that I'd love to spend more time with.
I love that. Mike.
I'm torn between two. It's either Simon Sinek or Seth Godin, but I would have to go with Simon Sinek, following up on that optimism. I think that he's really been putting out some great thought leadership throughout this past year about being optimistic, and I would love to be able to host him for dinner.
I love it. And Ash, how about you?
Denzel Washington.
Oh, these are good ones.
I mean,
Tara,
Madison,
do you have one? Who's yours?
oh gosh, I wasn't ready for that. No, I just noticed Madison changed his to Elon Musk though.
Ooh.
He wants two dinner guests.
I want to talk about aliens.
I love it. Guys, this was so awesome. For everyone who tuned in, you'll get an email from Tara and I. I'm not going to promise it tonight. It'll probably come tomorrow. But this was so exciting. Panelists, I'm snapping a picture of all of us. We crushed it. Guys, thanks for our first industry webinar. Please tune into the next one. It's February 17th. We're focusing on healthcare. So all things healthcare. We'll see you guys there.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.